Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Nightfall Terrors. I know many of you enjoy using these videos to help you fall asleep, so before you start to drift off, it would be great if you could leave a comment sharing where you're listening from around the world. If you're enjoying the episodes, don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Now, let's get cozy, settle in, and begin The Well in the White Woods. Part 3. To whoever finds this, I'm writing these words with the full awareness that they could be my last. If this message has reached you, then chances are you've walked the same dark path I once did. I only hope you're better prepared. They're out there, always watching, even when it seems like no one's around. In this town, nothing escapes their gaze. When I began following this story, I didn't believe in any of it. I thought it was just a curious tale, something local, maybe worth a short article at best. I couldn't have been more wrong. What I uncovered wasn't folklore. It was something rotting at the core of this place, a deep and growing darkness, thriving on the quiet compliance of those who knew and chose to say nothing. Every truth I uncovered only made things worse. Each revelation peeled away another layer of horror, until I finally realized what it meant to know too much. To my children, if you ever read this, I'm sorry. Sorry for leaving you behind. Sorry I won't be there as you grow. Sorry I couldn't keep you safe from what's coming. To anyone else reading this, forgive me. This may be my final testimony. The truth lies down there, buried in the shadows. I found something about the being in the well. It has a weakness. When it hasn't fed in a long time, it loses strength. Tomorrow I'm going to try and end this. If you're reading this, then I didn't make it. Reading that letter broke something inside me. It hit harder than I thought words ever could. Every sentence was a reminder of how little I understood, and how much my mom had risked trying to protect us. She had fought something I still couldn't fully grasp. Now here I was, left with scattered clues that barely formed a picture, let alone a solution. I was chasing phantoms in a town drowning in secrets, every lead circling back into confusion. But there was no way around it. I had to follow where she had gone, even if it meant facing what had defeated her. That walk back home felt unreal, the kind where your feet keep moving, but your mind stays stuck on the past. I'd found answers, at least some, but not the ones I wanted. Larry was still gone, and nothing felt resolved, but at least now, I knew I wasn't imagining things. Whatever haunted these woods, it was real, and acknowledging that gave me the smallest bit of clarity. Not comfort exactly, just clarity. By the time I reached home, morning was just beginning. The sky had that strange grayish-purple glow that makes the world feel unfamiliar, like a dream you can't fully wake from. My father hadn't moved, still in the same chair, passed out cold, a bottle balanced precariously between his fingers. I didn't bother waking him. Instead, I sent out a quick text to Missy and John. Meet me at the Oak. Urgent. As I waited, fatigue pressed down on me like a blanket. I kept dozing off, jerking awake every time I blinked too long. Missy's hand on my shoulder finally pulled me back to the present. She looked at me with that gentle smile she always had, one that made my heart stumble no matter the circumstances. I didn't hold back. Everything poured out. The strange things my grandfather had said, the fact that my mom's records had vanished without explanation, and Jeremy's talk about the mysterious cabin. I couldn't stop the words. I needed them out. John rubbed his eyes and muttered, "Well, shit," clearly as drained as I was. Missy leaned forward, focused. "So, we need to find the cabin now, right, Matt?" I hesitated, feeling awkward. "Yeah, about that," when I admitted I'd already gone alone. Missy didn't hold back. She smacked the back of my head so hard it made me wince. "Are you out of your mind?" she snapped. "What if something had happened? If you got hurt or vanished? What would we have done?" "Kept going, I guess," I muttered, avoiding her gaze. "Don't joke. We need you, Matt." Her fingers locked around mine. "We can't do this without you." I swallowed and nodded. "I know. It was reckless. I had to see it with my own eyes first. Well, whatever you found sounds like there's no reason to go back," she said, her tone laced with frustration. John had been quiet, too quiet. Finally, he broke his silence. "So, what now?" I turned toward the edge of town, where the trees of the white woods stood like stone guardians. "We stop waiting," I said firmly, reaching behind me and revealing my dad's handgun. The metal was cold, heavy in my hand. "If there's a chance Larry's in there, we have to go." Cracking the safe had been easy. Dad's birthday wasn't exactly a tough code. Missy hit me again, this time even harder. "Seriously? It's for protection," I argued, rubbing the new sore spot. I wanted to believe this was just some junkie out there. But my mom, she thought it was something else. I believe her now. Our eyes met, and I saw it. That same look John had years ago when Larry disappeared. A mix of fear and determination that only teenagers can wear and still believe they'll come out okay. We didn't speak. We just moved toward the woods. Missy reached for my hand, and John grabbed my other. I raised a brow at him. "Don't get weird," he said, scowling. "I'm terrified. You're just the buffer." The moment cracked our tension. We laughed, nervously, but sincerely, and began our walk. Each step grew heavier. Familiar paths now felt endless, and behind every tree, it felt like something might be watching. I wondered, briefly, if our parents had noticed we were gone, if they knew where we were headed. But that didn't matter anymore. There was only one question worth asking. Was Larry still alive? Then the well came into view, more ominous now, even in daylight. Something deep in me screamed not to go. The same instinct that had stopped me all those years ago. I shut it out. We exchanged a final look. Then I grabbed the rope and led the descent. This time I had a proper flashlight, not just a phone. Its beam cut through the blackness as I reached the bottom. And then I understood why Missy had struggled to describe what she'd seen before. The tunnels. So many of them, stretching in every direction, some straight, others bending or diving steeply into the earth. It was overwhelming, like standing in front of an open mouth, ready to swallow us whole. Missy came next. I saw her pale, her eyes unfocused, haunted by memory. I pulled her into a quick hug. "I've got you," I whispered, though I wasn't sure I could keep that promise. John was last. His descent didn't go well. The rope snapped halfway, and he crashed to the ground, groaning. "Smooth landing genius," I said, covering my worry with sarcasm. He groaned. "Shut up," fumbling for his flashlight and checking for bruises. We stared at the tunnels. Sunlight barely reached us. I turned to Missy, hesitant. Which way did it take him? She looked around, then up at the broken rope. Does it even matter? We're stuck down here. There's got to be another exit, I said, trying to convince both her and myself. This many tunnels. There has to be more than one way out. She finally pointed to a sloped tunnel. That one, I think. The tunnel angled downward sharply, smooth, used often, easy in, not so easy back out. I handed her the gun, showing her the safety. If I yell or something comes up that's not me, shoot. Don't stop until it stops moving. She nodded, grip steady. I probably sounded ridiculous, like a line from some bad movie. But fear does that to people. This was no movie. There would be no rescue. Just us. And whatever was waiting. I began my descent, sharp rocks staring at me as I slid. The darkness felt alive, pushing against me. When I hit bottom, I stood in another chamber, empty, but ringed with more tunnels. All clear, I shouted. Then Missy ran first, but Larry was first down. It was our signal, proof I was still me. They joined me. We looked around, uneasy. Now what? Missy asked, gun in hand. Why does she keep the gun? John whined. Because she can shoot straight, I replied. And honestly, I have no clue. We picked a tunnel, then another. Hours passed, maybe days. No sense of time. Just dark, cold stone and endless turns. We were climbing out of a narrow passage when it happened. I stepped and the ground gave way. I fell hard, flashlight tumbling into the dark. The impact knocked the breath from me. Pain lit up my back. I heard their voices above, distorted, panicked. Miraculously, my flashlight had survived. I grabbed it and froze. This chamber was different, bigger, older. I'd landed on a pile of something brittle, bone, old yellowed bone. This wasn't just another cave. This was a place with purpose. The walls were covered in markings. Some scratched words, pleading messages. Others were alien, mocking attempts at human shapes and letters, like someone copying without understanding. And then I saw it, my mother's handwriting. Exit is up. It explained the weak ground I'd fallen through, but raised a chilling question. Had she made it out? Or were her remains among the bones below? Another carving caught my eye, newer, sharper, shapes my brain refused to accept. A mass with two impossibly long limbs descending, while tiny human figures knelt before it. Whatever lived down here, it had been worshipped, and we were deep in its domain. It wasn't the carving itself that held my attention. It was what hid beneath it. A narrow gap, barely noticeable, where the earth looked different, looser, like something had disturbed it long ago. I dropped to my knees, attacking the patch with everything I had, kicking, clawing, digging until my muscles screamed. The soil was tough, almost like stone, but there was a strange sense, an intuition, that something hollow lay beyond. Driven by desperation, I slammed my flashlight against the spot repeatedly, ignoring the pain in my hand as the beam danced across the widening crack. Inch by inch, the opening grew. When it finally gaped wide enough, I dropped my tools and clawed at the compacted earth with raw fingers. With one last pull, the dirt gave way, revealing a narrow tunnel descending into darkness. I paused just long enough to look over my shoulder. John and Missy were nowhere in sight. My chest tightened. I took one deep breath, then slid inside. Immediately, I knew this tunnel was unlike the others we had explored. It had an unnatural stillness, as if time itself had unraveled here. The walls seemed to breathe, drawing me further in. Each footstep felt heavier, each breath harder to take, like I was surrendering fragments of myself to whatever force waited in the dark. But still, I moved forward. Eventually, the tunnel widened into a chamber much larger than the ones before. I swept my flashlight around, half expecting to see the familiar cryptic symbols etched into the stone. But these walls were bare, empty, silent. Then my light landed on something in the center of the chamber. My heart froze. It was Larry. He lay still, as if placed deliberately atop a makeshift cushion, as though he had been patiently waiting for me this entire time. My little brother, his face peaceful, his breathing slow. I raced toward him, dropping to my knees and shaking him, calling his name. But he didn't stir. I pressed my fingers to his neck. Alive. Unbelievably, impossibly alive. There was no time to question how. His skin was warm, his limbs heavy, not gaunt or frail, like someone lost for so long. It was wrong, but I couldn't think about that yet. All that mattered was that I had him. Then the sound came. It cut through the silence like a blade, a shriek piercing and unnatural. So sharp I thought my ears would bleed. It didn't stop. It shifted, warping into a deeper, gurgling resonance. It sounded primordial, as if it had emerged from the very beginning of life itself. I spun around, and there she was, my mother. For one impossible second, I wanted to believe it, to run to her, to feel her arms around me again. But that couldn't be. She had been gone for years. Whatever this was, whatever wore her face, it wasn't her. I stood paralyzed, heart pounding, unable to move as it stared back at me, with eyes too empty to be human. Then Missy's voice cut through the terror like a lifeline. "Matt, over here. I think we found a way out." She ran into the chamber, her breath catching when she saw the scene before her. Her eyes widened, frozen by the sight of the thing wearing my mother's face. Then it made a new sound. Not a scream this time, but something far worse. A growl, slow and deliberate, filled with hunger. I watched Missy instead of the thing, and maybe that's what kept me sane. There was a sound, sickening, wet, flesh being torn apart, like leather soaked in water and ripped in half. When I turned back, my mother's skin lay in shredded pieces across the floor, discarded like wrapping paper. And from that broken shell, something else began to emerge. Something I still can't fully describe. It towered above us, close to 15 feet tall. Its skin was a patchwork of textures, some parts crumbling like ancient stone, others disturbingly smooth and almost luminous. Its core, thankfully, stayed hidden beneath thick folds of mottled tissue, but between its countless limbs, strange structures pulsed. Were they organs? If so, they were unlike any I had ever imagined. Swollen sacs throbbed with unnatural colors, linked by translucent tubes. Whatever purpose they served, it was beyond human understanding. Then the smell hit, sickly, sweet, rotten, like sugar buried in soil and left to decay. It didn't attack, not immediately. It just watched, and in that moment, something passed between us, an unspoken exchange. It pressed into my thoughts without words, showing me things I still can't put into language. It wanted something important, but it wasn't Larry. It wanted something else entirely. Then it moved. Its arms, long and segmented, shifted to support its massive frame, while smaller limbs beneath skittered like insect legs, lifting it forward. The trance snapped. I bolted toward Missy. She was already running. In the tunnel, John waited, eyes wide as he took Larry from me without a word. Missy shoved the gun into my hands, her grip trembling. This tunnel was different too, larger, with stone steps climbing toward the surface. We ran, feet pounding against the ground, each step echoing our panic. Behind us, the creature's limbs scraped and cracked, bones stretching beyond what should be physically possible. I dared to look back. One of its arms shot forward, fingers twisting like steel cables, latching onto my ankle. I hit the ground hard, the wind knocked from my lungs. I squeezed the trigger. 7 shots. Each one a dull thud, useless. The creature didn't bleed. I reached for my knife, slippery with sweat, and dropped it. As I was being dragged back, John appeared. He must have handed Larry off to Missy. He threw himself at the creature's arm, slashing with raw determination. The thing shrieked, shaking the tunnel with a sound that rattled my bones. And then, John, my best friend. I reached for him, but another limb slammed between us. I backed away, realizing the creature couldn't stretch further. But the realization came too late. What happened to him next? I can't describe. I won't. Just know that it wasn't quick. And mercy never came. I ran. I left him. Maybe that makes me a coward. Maybe there was no other choice. I tell myself he was already gone, but the guilt never left me. I kept running until I saw light, until Missy appeared with Larry in her arms. She looked at my face and I didn't need to say anything. She collapsed, her knees giving out. "John," she whispered. I couldn't speak. We emerged in what looked like a ruined church. The architecture was all wrong. Angles that didn't belong, symbols etched into rotting wood that made my skin crawl. The hatch we'd climbed through was enormous. It took both of us to shut it. Even sealed, we could still hear it. The creature's fury, its sorrow, its hunger, or maybe it was all three. We sat in silence. Maybe hours passed. We didn't talk. Not about John, not about what we saw. That church might have held answers, but we didn't search. The questions no longer mattered. We had Larry, but the cost. We stumbled out into a part of town we didn't recognize. Strangers stared. 3 teens covered in filth and blood, carrying an unconscious boy. Larry came to, eventually, but something was missing. When I hugged him, it felt like holding a shell. Sheriff Reynolds was the first to find us. "Start from the beginning," he said. "Pen ready." We told our story, the one we had rehearsed. I saw the moment he stopped believing us. "And John?" he asked. "He just vanished." "We got separated," Missy replied, her voice steady though her hands shook. It was dark in those woods. The worst was Missy's mom. She'd always loved me like a son, but that night she looked at me like a stranger. "Matt," she said, white-knuckling a coffee mug, "tell me what really happened." I met her gaze, saw the fear, the longing for truth. "We told you everything," I lied. "Our dad didn't say much. He just sat by Larry's hospital bed, holding his hand, whispering things I couldn't hear. Maybe he knew. Maybe he couldn't face it. He died 3 years later, taking whatever secrets he had to his grave. That summer faded into shadows and lies. We kept up the story. Larry found in the woods, John lost. People nodded along, but behind their eyes was suspicion. No one said it aloud, but everyone knew we were hiding something. The truth was too big for them, too strange. Dad started drinking. He wasn't forgetting. He was numbing himself. I'd catch him watching Larry, fork hovering in midair, horror flickering across his face, before he swallowed it with another drink. He knew something. About the well. About what lived there. Missy and I tried to stay close. Her parents didn't approve. They thought I was dangerous. We met in secret at the old train bridge. Sometimes she held my hand, but the warmth was gone. We were survivors clinging to the same wreckage, drifting apart. But Larry was the worst. My brother came back. Wrong. He looked fine, but something had changed. His responses were always just a little off. He stared into space, listening to things no one else could hear. The real Larry never returned. This version wore his face but didn't know how to live in it. When I left for college, I begged Missy to come. We stood in her backyard under the moonlight. I told her everything, how I loved her, how we could escape. She cried and told me no. Her father had cancer. She couldn't leave. I understood, but it still broke me. I watched her fade in the rearview mirror, just like Larry had. For 10 years, I built a new life, new city, new job, new people. I buried it all, told myself it was a hallucination, a shared trauma. I dated women who'd never heard of that town. I became someone else. Then Missy called. Her voice shook. Larry had disappeared again. 3 days missing. His wife found a notebook, pages filled with strange patterns, circles within circles, and in the margins, the same word written again and again, waiting. Now I'm on a plane, watching the familiar land come closer. My hands won't stop shaking. I feel something deep inside, a weight I can't name. Maybe it's guilt, maybe obligation, but I know one thing for certain. This isn't over. It never was. That thing in the well has been waiting, and somehow I've always known I'd return. Maybe I can end this. Maybe I'm just the next sacrifice. Either way, I'm going back. Back to where it began. Back to what still waits below. My 13-year-old son's YouTube channel took a disturbing turn. It began a few months ago, right around the time my son Jason turned 13 and started begging to launch a YouTube channel. At first glance, it didn't seem like a big deal. After all, countless kids his age are doing the same thing. What's the harm, right? But I couldn't help feeling uneasy. Maybe it's because I come from a different time. A time when childhood wasn't about broadcasting yourself online for validation from total strangers. A time when being a kid meant playing outside, not managing a brand. I should have listened to that nagging instinct. Maybe then, things wouldn't have gone so far. You promised I could be on social media. When I turned 13, he said it with those pleading eyes I'd seen so many times over the years, eyes that made it hard to say no. The truth is, yes, I had made that promise, a casual one, meant to quiet him down when he was younger. I hoped he'd forget about it as he got older, that maybe he'd find new interests, make some friends, and grow out of the idea. But that didn't happen. Back then, Jason was dealing with some bullying. He didn't have much that made him happy. He needed something, anything, that gave him a sense of joy and control. So, as a father, I gave in. I allowed him to create the channel. I told myself I was doing the right thing. The content he produced was lighthearted, simple game streams, commentary on trending topics, some quirky product reviews. Nothing inappropriate or extreme. I was nervous at first. What if no one watched? What if he got discouraged? I worried he'd be disappointed. But surprisingly, his channel grew quickly. He wasn't breaking the internet, but within a couple of months, he had around 1,000 subscribers. I watched him come alive again. He'd talk endlessly about his latest video, how many new subs he'd gained, or the kind words viewers left. It was the most animated I'd seen him in years. Since Jason was 9, after the accident that took his mother, Bonnie, away from us, he had changed. We both had. I still remember the awful sound of metal tearing into metal, the screech of tires, and the image of what was left of her body. Jason wasn't in the car that night. That's the only part of the event I've ever felt thankful for. This YouTube channel. It gave him something, a distraction, maybe, or hope. And seeing that glimmer in him again meant everything to me, which is why it cut so deep when someone began disrupting that small bit of happiness. I kept a close eye on his channel, not to interfere, but to stay informed. The internet isn't always a safe place, especially not for kids. People feel empowered by anonymity, and sometimes it brings out the worst in them. Then I noticed a particular username leaving strange comments. Bonnie's Revenge. At first, I hoped it was some cruel coincidence, but in my gut, I knew better. Bonnie was Jason's mother's name. Initially, Jason didn't react. The comments were odd, but they didn't seem harmful. Short, cryptic phrases, almost like poetry, appearing under random videos. Play the game. Stay the same. Never change. Sitting in a dark, cold place, wearing no face, waiting for grace. At first, I thought maybe it was a fan trying to be creative, or just someone being edgy. But then, one particular comment hit differently. There's no escape from cyberspace, this final resting place. Humanity undone, waiting for you in car wreck. Reading that line, something inside me shifted. My stomach turned. It was too specific, too personal. I debated turning off comments entirely, but when I brought it up, Jason's whole mood shifted. Most of the comments are nice, Dad. Please don't let one creep ruin it for me. And he was right. The majority were kind, supportive. Jason shrugged off the weird ones, laughed it off even, called the commenter a harmless troll. I wanted to believe he was right. That was my mistake. For a while, everything seemed to return to normal. The strange user went silent. Jason seemed happier again, normal at least. But over time, I noticed subtle changes. He became withdrawn, spoke less. The excitement that had once fueled him was fading. Then, one night, I finally asked him what was going on. His voice was soft. "The weirdo's back, Dad. And now, they're talking about Mom." Rushed to check the channel. The comments were back, this time worse. Personal, chilling. "Jason, it's Mommy. Can you find my face?" "It's gone, honey. Mommy needs her face." "I think my face might be somewhere on the asphalt around Becker Street. Will you go check, Jace?" "JC, honey, it's cold. Won't you come warm Mommy with your strong arms?" I sat frozen. The screen swam in front of me. This wasn't just weird anymore. This was targeted. Someone knew details about us, about her, about that night. Could it be a school bully, a neighbor, someone who knew Bonnie? I contacted every parent I could. I accused, I pleaded, I demanded, but no one had answers. Many were shocked at the suggestion. Others got defensive. It led nowhere. Desperate, I clicked on Bonnie's Revenge's profile. There was nothing in the bio, no links, just 2 video clips with grainy, dark thumbnails that gave me a sick feeling. I hovered, then I clicked. The first video opened with darkness. A distorted static buzzed, like something wet and alive was breathing through the speakers. Slowly, a landscape came into view. Trees swayed unnaturally, their branches jerking like puppets on invisible strings. The road, cracked and wet, reflected dim light. Then, the whispers started. "Come see me. Come see me. Come see me." Mechanical, almost lifeless. The camera tilted up, revealing Becker Street, the place where my wife had died, a location only I should have remembered. The camera inched towards something red, something organic, torn fabric, wetness, flesh. The video froze just before something too human became clear. I shut it off, horrified, but I needed to see the second clip. It began with the silence, then a screeching metallic sound, like brakes locking before a crash. The camera activated, and then I saw it. Her face, or what was left of it, crushed, twisted, partly decomposed. One eye gone, the other still moving, twitching, watching. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. The lips parted. A whisper, brittle and childish. "Jason." Then louder. "Give Mommy a kiss." The voice warped, splitting into layers. Some sounded like a child mocking an adult. Others like echoes of Bonnie's laughter. The screen pulsed. The image pressed closer. And then, those ruined eyes focused. Not on the camera, on me. I slammed the laptop shut. My breathing was ragged, sweat soaked through my shirt. This couldn't be real, but part of me knew it was. When the fear ebbed, I thought about what I'd seen. The precision, the details. That wasn't some internet prank. That was something else. Something that knew us. I couldn't sleep. I ended up digging through the attic for something I hadn't touched in years. Bonnie's old laptop. It had been untouched since the accident. Covered in dust. Still intact. I powered it on. The screen flickered. I guessed the password. Jason's birthday. It worked. Most of it was ordinary. Photos, documents, work stuff. Until I found a folder I didn't recognize. Mirror bone inside. Dozens of audio files. No names. Just timestamps. I played the last one, dated just before the accident. Bonnie's voice faint. Jason was sleep-talking again. but it wasn't his voice. A pause. Breathing. He said things about a place with no doors, no sky, under wires and lights that hum. Then a second voice, raspy, alien. You're not supposed to be here. I tore off the headphones. My hands were shaking. What had she been recording? And why? I checked Jason's channel again. All the comments gone. Wiped clean. Not just the bad ones. All of them. But his subscribers. Tens of thousands. Growing fast. The number climbed in. Real time. I opened his latest video. The thumbnail was harmless. Jason holding a drink with a goofy grin. But the video wasn't right. He stared silently. Face pale. Expression blank. The sound distorted, garbled. I swear I heard Bonnie humming beneath the noise. Then a voice layered over the silence. Keep growing your subscribers. Make mommy proud. I skipped ahead. For a few frames, the background changed. From his room to a hallway. Dark. Metallic. Something dangling in the shadows. The video cut out. Comments disabled. Upload time. While we were asleep. Jason swore he didn't post it. I didn't film that, Dad. I swear. That night I heard singing from his room. A voice, a woman's. Slow, wet, words dragging like limbs on gravel. I opened his door. He sat upright, eyes closed, smiling. His tablet screen lit up by itself. The wallpaper had changed. It was her face, mouth moving, chanting. I knew what I had to do. I had to shut the channel down, for good. Even if it broke his heart. Even if it didn't make sense. Because whatever was happening, it wasn't done with us yet. Every single night I found myself fixated on the laptop screen, my eyes darting constantly between the latest messages from a user named Bonnie's Brought to Revenge, and my son Jason's hopeful, eager face illuminated by the screen's glow. Inside, a voice screamed at me to shut everything down, to end the channel completely, and shield my son from the growing darkness that seeped through those strange, disturbing comments. The twisted words were like poison, slowly seeping into him. I noticed his laughter became less frequent, his bright eyes dimming a little more, with every cryptic poem or chilling line about his mother. But Jason, he begged me not to do it. Dad, this is my thing. It's the only good thing I have right now. Please don't take it away from me. I saw the fear behind that plea, the fragile hope clinging to each new subscriber milestone, the rare moments when he felt like himself again. I wanted to protect him from harm, but I also knew I couldn't rob him of the one thing that brought him joy and purpose. So I let the channel continue, telling myself I would find other ways to keep him safe. But deep down, I knew that promise felt hollow. Then one night, after the comment section had been flooded again, with more of Bonnie's revenge's unsettling rhymes, I brought up the idea of shutting the channel down once and for all. Jason's face fell. The smile he wore shattered like a fragile vase dropped onto cold tile. Please, Dad. I need this. Just a little longer. I swallowed the tight knot forming in my throat and nodded, feeling my heart break. But the nightmare didn't end there. The very next morning, Jason came to me, his voice barely above a whisper and trembling. They found me on Instagram, he said. Same username, same creepy messages. And then it was on TikTok and Snapchat. No matter where he posted, no matter how many accounts we deleted or usernames we changed, Bonnie's Revenge was always there, like a shadow with unlimited reach, like a storm that refused to pass. The messages shifted with each platform's style but kept the same chilling, personal, cruel tone. It became clear to me with a sinking feeling that this wasn't just about a YouTube channel. It wasn't some anonymous troll. This was a relentless, targeted hunt, and the threat wasn't going away. The house grew unnervingly silent. It wasn't just quiet. It was an unnatural stillness, as if the air itself was holding its breath. Even the old radiator, which usually hissed and knocked like an arthritic ghost, was eerily still. I could feel the silence pressing down on me, heavy and watchful, like the house knew something I didn't. One evening I sat alone at the basement desk, the laptop open before me. The screen displayed a paused frame from the video, showing Bonnie's broken face, twisted, half-melted, lips torn. But there was something about her eyes. They moved. I replayed the footage, heart pounding, eyes wide. The scene played again. The dark road, the jerky camera, the horrifying reveal. But this time, I noticed something new. In the far corner behind her, and hidden in the shadows of the roadside trees, there was a flicker. Something tall, thin, angular, like a marionette made of broken bones and shards of glass. Not human, not even close. The video cut to static, and I sat frozen. The image burned behind my closed eyelids. I blinked and opened the laptop's file, directory. Only one file was visible, the video. But I knew Bonnie. She was meticulous, cautious about digital traces. So, I ran a scan for hidden files. Another file appeared, a simple text document titled, "For Jason, don't let him open it." My instincts told me to close it immediately, but I didn't listen. The file opened into a collection of strange poetry, coded messages, and eerie instructions. Each line grew darker and deeper, words that felt like hooks digging into something primal inside me. Then came the last entry. I slammed the laptop shut. The basement lights flickered overhead, a single bulb groaning as if under invisible pressure. Had I opened something I shouldn't have? Was this drive not a warning, but a doorway? Upstairs, the house creaked, wood popping like knuckles cracking under tension. And then I heard it. A child's giggle, gurgling, wet, and unnatural. It wasn't Jason's laugh. I ran upstairs, my heart pounding like a war drum. His bedroom door was open, the cold blue light of his screen spilling into the hallway. The room was dim except for the flickering static on the monitor. Jason sat perfectly still, too still, like a statue carved from shadow. His lips moved, whispering words I couldn't hear. "Jason," I called softly. He turned slowly as if his joints didn't quite remember how to move. His eyes shone in the screen's glow, not with light, but with emptiness. Hollow, void-like. "I talked to Mommy," he said flatly. "She's in the screen. She's cold." I stepped closer, a heavy dread pressing against my chest. "Buddy, that's not her," I said gently. "She smells like her," he murmured, "like dust, shampoo, and that box in the basement." The laptop screen rippled. The static stretched like an open wound. Shapes moved just beneath the surface, shapes that were not meant to be seen. I reached past him and slammed the laptop shut. Jason screamed, not in fear, but in rage. He clawed at me, fists pounding my chest. "You trapped her," She was trying to come back. "I'm sorry," I whispered, holding him tight, even as he thrashed. "I'm so sorry, Jason." Eventually, he collapsed against me in sobs. "I miss her, Dad," he whispered. "I miss her so much." "I know," I said, my voice breaking. "I miss her every day." We sat like that in the dark, two broken people holding on to each other through our grief. Later that night, I returned to the basement, to the box, to the drive, to whatever it was that I had opened. Bonnie had always documented things, journals, notebooks, scraps of thoughts. I found them hidden beneath old photo frames, wrapped in a faded scarf that still faintly smelled like her. The scent was dusty now, faded by time, but unmistakably hers. One journal stood out, bound in cracked leather, its pages filled with chaotic handwriting. July 13th, 2020. He came to me in a dream. Not a man, but something wearing a man's grief like a coat. He said Jason would suffer if I didn't listen. I laughed at first. Then he showed me what he meant. July 21st, 2020. There are rules. Blood is memory. Screens are doors. I thought it was madness, but I saw him in the corner of the baby monitor. He watches through reflections, through pain. August 3rd, 2020. I made a deal. I didn't mean to. I just wanted Jason to forget the crash. I wanted him not to hurt. But now, it hurts worse. I see it in him. Something has followed. She tried to protect him. She was the one who opened the door first. And in my grief, I had thrown it wide open again. I stared at her words, trembling. Tears fell on the pages, smearing the ink. I realized then I had never truly helped Jason carry his pain. I buried it, masked it with distractions, with screens. But pain doesn't disappear. It waits, and sometimes it finds a face. Someone always lives there. I wasn't the first to notice the house. That was Marv. He lived just across the street, retired electrician, mid-60s, stuck in his routines, bit of a worrier, but completely harmless. The type who trimmed his edges with a level, watered the cracks in the pavement, and could tell you if a squirrel sneezed 3 doors down. If something was off in the neighborhood, Marv spotted it before anyone else even sensed it. One morning, I was collecting my mail when he called from his porch. "Hey, Ricky, come here a sec." I assumed it was another rant about garbage pickup. Instead, he just pointed toward the end of the block. Gray siding, 2 stories, always closed garage, lifeless windows. The porch light flicked on every night without fail. "You ever seen the guy who lives there?" he asked. I squinted. "Not really. Moved in a couple years ago, right? Quiet guy, I guess. But have you seen him?" Marv's voice dropped, taking out the trash, checking the mail, anything at all. I paused, then frowned. Come to think of it, no, never. Nodded like he'd been expecting that. That porch light comes on at exactly 3:12 every night, not a minute off. No car. Mailbox is always empty, but I've never seen him check it. We stood there for a while, watching. It wasn't that the house looked spooky. That was the unsettling part. It didn't look like anything. Just a house. And somehow, that was worse. "I think we should take a look," Marv said. I laughed. "You're serious? What if he died in there? Slipped in the shower? Been lying there for weeks?" If that were the case, the mail would pile up. The smell alone, someone would have noticed. He stared at me. Exactly. Somebody. And now, that's us. I should have walked away. But Marv was already halfway down the sidewalk, robe flapping, coffee in hand. "Marv, don't," I called. He didn't look back. So yeah, I followed him. Not because I was worried about the house. I was worried about him. Marv had a way of obsessing. A few years ago, he spent days recording the hum of a nearby transformer, convinced the pitch was off by half a hertz. This felt like one of those times. Only, it didn't. As we neared the house, the air changed. Everything got quieter. No birds, no breeze. Just that thick, eerie silence where your own heartbeat feels too loud. We stepped onto the driveway. No car, no oil stains. The lawn wasn't overgrown, but it hadn't been mowed either. Just untouched, like time had skipped it. Marv went up to the porch. I stayed back. "You sure about this?" I asked. "I didn't come here to admire the siding." He knocked. 3 sharp knocks. We waited. Nothing. No movement. No creaks. No sound behind the blinds. He knocked again, louder. Still nothing. Marv looked back at me like that proved his point. Then he crept over to the front window and cupped his hands to the glass. "Really?" I said. "You're going full rear window now." "I'm not breaking in," he muttered. "Just looking." I joined him. Inside, everything looked tidy. Couch, coffee table, a TV showing a looping screensaver. 1 mug on the table, half full. "See," I said. "Someone lives here, probably just private." "No pictures," Marv replied. "No mail. Nothing on the walls. Some people like to keep it minimal. Or maybe," he said, "they want it to seem like someone lives here." Then he froze. "Upstairs," he whispered. I followed his gaze. At the top of the stairs, down a narrow hallway, I thought I saw something. A shape. A figure, maybe. Still. Shadowed. I blinked. Looked again. It was gone. Or maybe it had never been there. Marv stepped back slowly. "Someone's in there." I didn't respond, because for the first time since moving to this neighborhood, I wasn't sure I was thinking clearly anymore. That night, Marv wouldn't let it go. He sent me screenshots of the porch light, time-stamped, marked the same flicker in the same upstairs window. He was unraveling, and I was starting to follow, because we both kept watching, and nothing ever changed. No car, no movement, no visitors. We decided to call the police. Not 911, just a wellness check. "Never seen the guy," we said. "Something's off." A patrol unit came by the next morning. Marv and I sat on my porch, sipping coffee, watching the cruiser pull up. The officer walked up casually, raised his hand to knock. But before he could, click, the door opened. No footsteps, no delay. Officer didn't react, just stood there, calm. "Just checking in, sir. Got a call from the neighbors. Everything all right?" We waited for a reply. Nothing. Still, the officer nodded. "All right, take care, sir." Then walked back to his car like it was all normal. We asked if the man was okay. "Yep, he's fine. No name, no description, just fine." Marv stared after the car. There were no footsteps. I didn't argue, because he was right. After that, Marv changed. Not drastically, but noticeably. He stopped speculating. started sounding certain. "He's always in the hallway," he told me one night, standing there before the door even opens, like he's waiting, like he already knows. I asked how he could tell. He said he'd set up a wildlife camera across the street, hidden, motion triggered, pointed right at the porch. "Legal," he said, "my yard, my view." But he wouldn't go back himself. Said the house had seen him too much, that it wouldn't let him see clearly anymore. So we asked someone else. Tammy LaRoe, friendly woman, walks her dog daily, knows everyone by name and birthday, always happy to help. We told her it was a simple wellness check, just a knock. She agreed, no hesitation. We watched from my porch. Tammy walked up, straightened her coat, raised her hand, and the door opened before she could knock. She smiled, said a few words, nodded, then came back. "Nice guy," she said. "Bit odd," said. "He works nights. Seemed tired." Marv asked what he looked like. She paused. Tall, maybe, or thin. He was standing in the shadows, couldn't really see his face. Voice was soft, almost too soft. Then she shrugged and left. Marv said nothing, just went inside. That night, he reviewed the footage. I came over the next morning. He looked pale, barely blinking. "Watch this," he said. We scrubbed through the video. Tammy walked up, raised her hand. The door opened, and there, just inside the hallway, stood a figure, not walking forward, not answering the door, just standing, tall, pale, bald, too far back to open the door, still. And then, next frame, gone, not blurry, just gone. I leaned in. "That's who's answering the door," Marv whispered. "That's what waits behind it." I don't remember why I went, only that I did. Marv had passed out over his notes. I left his porch, crossed the street. I didn't knock, didn't have to. The door opened, and there it was, in the hallway, waiting, not breathing, not blinking, but alive. I can't describe what it felt like. It didn't speak, but I knew, like it pressed something into my thoughts, deep and quiet. It didn't need words. It showed me everything. Since then, I haven't felt fear. Marv came looking for me the next day. I was already on his porch, drinking his beer, watching the street. "You went over?" he asked. I nodded. "You saw him?" Another nod. "And he's fine," I said. Marv looked unsettled. "He explained everything," I added. Marv said nothing. I smiled. "He works nights. That's why the lights flicker. The footage, motion, blur, nothing strange." The words came out easy. I didn't have to think. The house had already told me. The answers were always there. "Let it go," I told Marv. "You've been watching too long. That was the last time I saw him. I don't know where he went. Or maybe I do. Maybe he went inside. Maybe the house kept him, like it kept me." Weeks passed. The gray house went dark. Porch light never came on again. But across the street, Marv's old place started changing. The porch light flicks on every night now. Not at 3:12, just whenever it wants to. Sometimes at sunset, sometimes at dawn. The curtains stay closed. but behind them a soft light pulses. And if you're really watching, you'll see someone in the window, tall, still, waiting. People ask about that house sometimes. Didn't someone used to live there? I always smile, because I know the truth, because I am the truth now. And I say, someone always lives there. My daughter has been standing in the hallway every night. I think something is wearing her. I'm not sure this is the right place to post, but I don't know where else to turn. I've reached out to the authorities, but they dismissed my concerns, chalking it up to stress. One officer even handed me a card for a trauma counselor. No one takes me seriously. Not my sister, not Emily's school counselor, not even my ex. I feel alone in this. So I'm writing here, hoping someone understands or at least has knowledge that can help before things get worse. It began subtly. Emily, 10 years old, with braces, freckles, a love for frogs and ancient mythology. Used to be a restless sleeper. She'd toss and turn, mumble strange things, sometimes whisper about the Black Kingdom under the roots, or the lady in the wall. Once I caught her murmuring a name, Arcantus. I figured she was just making up bedtime stories. But 3 weeks ago, her behavior changed. Instead of moving around, she started standing completely still in the hallway. The first time I saw her, it was 2:14 a.m. She stood silently, not moving. Her face was in shadow, her jaw slack, hanging like there was no tension. Then it snapped shut all of a sudden, as if she was chewing something dry. I told myself it was just stress, but it happened the following night, and the night after that, and then again. Worried, I set up a baby monitor in her room. At first, everything seemed normal, but at precisely 2:12 a.m., she would sit up slowly and stare at the vent above her bed. She didn't blink. She didn't move. Just stared. I called an HVAC technician, Mike. Great guy, came the same day. After checking the system, he came down from the attic, visibly puzzled. Everything's spotless, smells clean too, he said, wiping his hands. But the vent above her bed, you might want to see for yourself. It's odd. So I did. I removed the vent cover and shined my phone flashlight inside. About 2 feet in, I found carved markings, symbols, but also tally marks. Dozens of them, etched deep into the metal in clusters, 3s, 4s, sometimes 5s. Like someone or something was keeping account. Later that night, I overheard Emily whispering. I asked who she was talking to. She looked up at me, her voice strangely calm. "You interrupted," she said. "He was almost finished." I asked who he was. She smiled, but it wasn't a child's smile. It felt unnatural, practiced, wrong. "He lives in the quiet," she answered, and laid back down like nothing had happened. That night I had a strange dream. I was in our living room, but everything was off. The walls were damp, and every picture frame was filled with the static. In the center of the room stood a figure, tall, gangly, hunched. Its body looked like it was wrapped in skin that shimmered like oil. Its face wasn't there, just emptiness where a head should have been. It moved like it used to be human, but had forgotten how people are supposed to move. It stepped forward, unsteadily. When it spoke, its voice was a blend of sounds: child, elderly, female, mechanical glitch, all layered together. Vista im redire. I don't speak Latin, but I looked it up later. Do you want her back? I woke up gasping for air. Emily was sitting up again, mouth slightly parted, whispering a single word repeatedly. Dissectio. Dissectio. I looked it up. Another Latin term. It means dissection or anatomical separation. I think that's what it wants to do, and I think it already has. Now, it doesn't even try to hide. Update 4:09 a.m. She's no longer standing in the hallway. She's sitting now, knees drawn to her chest, rocking gently. Her mouth is moving, but I can't make out the words. There's something behind her. It's not touching her, but it's close. A shadow stretches from the ceiling down the wall, like a curtain halfway, pulled back. Its shape is all wrong. Too tall, too thin. Its joints bend where they shouldn't. I tried to look away, to go back into my room, but I couldn't move. My legs wouldn't respond. Then Emily turned her head. Not all the way, just enough to glance at me from the corner of her eye. She hasn't blinked, not once since this started, and I just noticed something else. She's still whispering that word, only now it's not her voice anymore. We just wanted to heal, but the cabin took them. My girlfriend is gone, so is my friend. They think I killed them both. We just needed a break. Lena said some time away might help. She found a small cabin listing. Nothing fancy, tucked away in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. Secluded, quiet. Just Lena, me, and Marcus, our old college buddy. The post described it as a cozy off-grid escape, ideal for unplugging and resetting. That night, Lena booked it without hesitation. This could help us, she said as we packed our bags. She didn't explain. She didn't need to. We both felt it. Whatever we had between us had been slowly falling apart for months. I'm not sure a few days in a cabin can undo everything, I said. Maybe not, she admitted. But silence might help us remember who we are. Marcus didn't know about our relationship issues. He came along for beer, long hikes, and a tech-free weekend. That was probably the point. We wanted a distraction, a reminder of what normal looked like. Maybe someone neutral could cut through the tension we'd been drowning in. We drove for hours, leaving the city behind. Cell service disappeared halfway up the peninsula, not long after GPS failed. I held my phone to the window, hoping to catch a signal. Nothing. No bars. Just that little SOS in the corner of the screen. From that point on, we relied on the written instructions the host had sent with the booking confirmation. The directions were oddly specific. Turn right at the tree with 2 red ribbons. Continue down the road and turn left at the wooden sign that reads, "Private property. Cabin will be on the left. If you reach the pit, you've gone too far." By the time we arrived, it was completely dark. The forest swallowed the last bits of sunlight, like it was drinking them. The cabin itself sat low and quiet, almost sinking into the ground. Its windows looked tired, like drooping eyes. A porch light glowed a dull yellow above the entrance, the only sign of life. We parked and climbed out, taking a good look at the place. Real rustic, Marcus muttered. Lena forced a smile. "You mean charming?" "It's not much, but we made it," I said, half relieved. "At least the power's on. That's something." We carried our bags inside and took a moment to look around. The first surprise was how clean the place was. Immaculate even. Recently scrubbed floors. Not a single dusty surface or forgotten dish. It even felt larger on the inside than it looked outside. A handwritten note on a small table near the door read, "Welcome. We're glad to have you. Enjoy your peaceful stay in our cozy cabin." There were 3 bedrooms, a hallway bathroom, a compact kitchen, and a spacious living room centered around a large stone fireplace. Lena and I took the master bedroom with the king-sized bed. Marcus claimed the queen bed in the second room. The third bedroom was smaller and clearly once belonged to a child. A narrow bed, a wooden toy chest in the corner, and a few faint cartoon stickers peeling from the walls. It was empty now, unused, like a room holding its breath. That first night was uneventful. Marcus and I played cards at the kitchen table. He'd brought along a jar of his own homemade moonshine, and it burned something fierce. Lena didn't touch it. She sat curled up on the couch near the fire, staring into the flames as if waiting for them to answer her. Around 2 in the morning, I woke up. I heard footsteps on the porch. Slow, intentional, pacing. 5 steps forward, pause, 5 steps back. I held my breath. I didn't move. Neither did Lena. I could hear her shallow breathing beside me, quick and deliberate. In the morning, I went outside. The snow was untouched, smooth, flawless, undisturbed. No footprints, no sign of anything, just a white, unbroken blanket. I heard it too, Lena whispered when Marcus stepped outside to stretch. I counted the steps. That evening, the power went out. The fire kept burning, but the lights flickered once, then died. The porch light buzzed loudly, popped, and went out. "We brought backup lanterns, right?" I asked. "Got one," Marcus said, already pulling it from his bag. "Once a Boy Scout dropout, always prepared." About an hour later, something knocked. It came from the window. 1 sharp knock, a pause, then 3 more. Lena screamed. Marcus instinctively grabbed the axe by the fireplace. We rushed to the window. No one was there, but outside, in the snow, footprints, bare, deep, fresh, as though someone had appeared out of nowhere, pressed against the glass, and vanished. The next morning, something had been slipped under the door, a folded greeting card, printed in soft pastel colors with bubbly letters. "Thank you for staying with us," it said cheerfully, above an image of a cartoon cabin with floating pink hearts. Inside, handwritten in red ink, "We hope you enjoyed the silence." That was it. We decided we were done. We packed what we could carry and made for the car. I jumped into the driver's seat, turned the key. Nothing. Dead. We made the choice to hike back to the main road. It had only taken 10 minutes to drive in. We figured walking out wouldn't take too long. We took what supplies we could, marked trees with a pocket knife, and began walking. But after what felt like hours, we realized we were looping. Over and over, we passed the same dead stump with 3 jagged limbs, again and again. The forest wasn't letting us leave. Lena began crying. Marcus shouted, accusing me of leading us in circles. I fired back, insisting we hadn't turned once. It escalated, fear wearing us thin, confusion turning to panic. Eventually, we ended up where we started, back at the clearing, the cabin, just sitting there, like it had never left, like it had waited. That night, the knocking returned, first at the window, then the front door, then the walls, soft at first, then louder, urgent. We sat in terrified silence until Marcus stood. "I've had enough," he said, voice low and steady. "If no one else will stop this, I will." He picked up the axe and walked to the door. I stood and blocked him. "Marcus, wait. We can't split up. We don't even understand what's happening." "Move," he said. "They said I can leave. I just have to go. They're calling me." He shoved me aside. The wooden handle cracked against my nose and dropped me to the floor, blood rushing down my face. At the doorway, he looked back with a wild gleam in his eyes. "I can go home," he repeated. He stepped outside and didn't look back. He didn't even close the door. I tried to follow, but my legs wouldn't move. Some instinct held me back. I shut the door and waited. An hour passed, then another. Then, thud. Something hit the porch. Something heavy, wet. A folded piece of paper slid under the door. We stared at it for what felt like hours before I found the courage to read it. "We only take what's given." I opened the door. 2 severed hands lay on the porch. Marcus's, his fingers twitching in the cold. The blood still fresh, bright against the snow. I slammed the door shut and fell to my knees. That was all that remained of my friend. Lena didn't speak after that. Neither did I. We sat in silence through the night, knowing Marcus was dead and his hands were all that was left of him. The next day, Lena began searching the cabin. Desperate, erratic. She pulled open drawers, tore through cabinets, scoured every room. She found the toy chest in the back bedroom. Inside, broken crayons, old construction paper, and wooden blocks. She began drawing spirals, loops, symbols I didn't recognize, names I didn't know. "I hear them," she whispered, "in the walls. They keep calling my name." She stopped eating, refused to sleep. I found her crouched near the fire, whispering softly, as if it was whispering back. "Can you get the lantern from the back room?" she asked one night. "I don't like the dark." I nodded and stepped away. 10 seconds, that's all it took. When I came back, the front door was wide open. She was gone. No footprints, no sound. Just wind. There was a final message on the wall written in red crayon. "Don't follow. They said I could go home. You'll be safe if I go." I believed them, and that was it. I collapsed, cried until there was nothing left in me. I prayed that whatever took them would take me too. When morning came, I walked through snow and slush until I heard the distant sound of trucks. Snowplow driver found me. I said I got lost hiking. The investigation went nowhere. Lena's and Marcus's families accused me of killing them. They believed I lured them out there after finding out about an affair. That I snapped. The police labeled it a double homicide, a crime of passion. I stuck to the truth that something out there hunted us, but the cabin was never found. The listing disappeared. There was no evidence of the property ever existing. Still, I went back. I couldn't stay away. Maybe guilt led me there. Maybe I wanted to die. Maybe I wanted to find them. I don't even know anymore. The listing was gone, but I still had the directions. I followed them again. Same road, same forest. looking for the tree with 2 red ribbons. There was no tree, no sign, no dirt, no cabin, just an empty clearing. I fell to my knees, sobbing, begging to be taken to. And then I saw it, a single broken crayon, half buried in the snow, red tip poking out, placed there like it was waiting, like it knew I'd come back. My New Year's resolution nearly cost me my life. This experience took place around 4 months ago. I'm a plus-size woman in my 30s, and I've struggled with my weight for most of my life. I genuinely believe that genetics plays a big part. Just about everyone in my family is on the heavier side. I haven't weighed under 200 pounds since middle school, and honestly, I had mostly come to terms with that. Most of my peers had already married and settled down, but dating for me hasn't been easy. After another year of feeling overlooked, I finally decided to take real action and try to lose the weight. The whole thing began with a New Year's celebration at work. Instead of the usual bar or catered dinner, my boss planned a more unconventional event. She wanted us to write down our resolutions and toss them into a bonfire she had her husband set up in the parking lot. She claimed the ashes floating into the sky would help our intentions reach the universe. It sounded odd, but I figured, why not? She's a bit eccentric anyway. What else would you expect from someone hosting a parking lot bonfire in the middle of winter? By the time the fire was actually lit, most of the crowd had already left. I didn't have any other plans that evening, so I decided to hang around a bit longer. My boss handed out sticky notes and pencils for everyone to jot down their resolutions. Before leaving, I quickly scribbled mine down, tossed the paper into the flames, and started walking toward my car. That's when Karen, one of my coworkers, stopped me just as I was unlocking my door. She made some small talk, asking if I had a nice Christmas, and whether I was ready to get back into work mode after the break. After about 10 minutes of catching up, she asked what my resolution was. I told her I wanted to lose some weight. She seemed genuinely supportive, and even gave me the contact info for her personal trainer. For a couple of weeks I hesitated. Hiring a personal trainer wasn't cheap, and I wasn't sure I could justify the expense. Still, I knew that having someone to keep me accountable might make all the difference. Eventually, I reached out. I sent a quick message asking if he had any availability either early in the morning or after work. To my surprise, he replied almost instantly. So fast, in fact, that I barely had time to set my phone down. At the time, I thought it was just lucky timing. Looking back, it feels more deliberate than coincidental. He said he was available that same day at 5 p.m., so I went home to change after work and met him at the gym where he worked. From the start, he came across as friendly and professional, and I'll admit, he was very attractive. Tall, well-dressed in high-end workout gear, clearly fit and well-groomed. His appearance alone could have made anyone feel self-conscious, but he had a way of making me feel encouraged rather than judged. He pointed out which areas we should target, so I wouldn't lose what he called my sexy curves. While the comment was a little too personal, his delivery made it feel more flattering than offensive. Throughout the session, he made other borderline comments, but nothing that truly crossed a line. The next day at work, I mentioned it to Karen, just out of curiosity. She laughed and said he'd never said anything like that to her. But then again, she joked she was old enough to be his grandmother. After a dozen sessions, I was starting to feel comfortable with him. Then, one afternoon, he called a couple of hours before our scheduled workout. and said the gym was temporarily closed for maintenance. I told him no problem and to enjoy the break. He then offered an alternative, inviting me to his home gym to make up for the inconvenience, free of charge. I hesitated briefly, but between the rapport we had built and the light flirtation that had been going on, I was honestly a little excited. Maybe he was interested in me. I rushed home, changed clothes, and headed over. I arrived just before our regular 5 p.m. session. When he answered the door, I noticed he looked slightly off. His hair was messier than usual, and he was already sweating. Still, I brushed it off. His house seemed pretty standard from the outside. Nothing flashy, just an average home. I wasn't surprised to see it didn't have any flowers or decoration. Inside, though, it was surprisingly upscale. The place was spotless, and most of the furniture looked like genuine leather. It was a 2-story house, but what caught my attention was a door in an odd location. It didn't seem like it led to another room, more like a closet or basement access. We made some small talk, and eventually he told me his gym was in the basement. That's when something shifted. He hadn't said anything alarming. His words were normal, his tone unchanged, but something about his expression didn't feel right. His smile looked exaggerated. His posture seemed stiff. It's hard to explain, but he suddenly gave off a very different energy, one that made me uneasy. Something in me said not to go down there, and for reasons I can't fully explain, I listened to that instinct. I asked if I could use the bathroom first, and said I'd meet him downstairs. He pointed to the bathroom and didn't seem suspicious. I went in, locked the door, and waited. I held my breath, listening carefully. Through the thin walls, I heard him open the basement door. Then, a scream, faint but chilling, like someone trying to call for help but unable to finish the word. Then, a loud thud. My heart dropped. He quickly slammed the basement door and bolted toward the front of the house. Then everything went quiet, until I heard the unmistakable sound of the front door being locked. Panic started to set in. I could hear him muttering, though I couldn't make out the words. He was pacing back and forth. After a few minutes, he called out, "Cassandra," he said, then repeated my name, firmer this time. "Cassandra, I know you heard that. It was just some neighbor kids playing. Come out when you're ready." There was no way that noise came from outside. I stayed silent for a moment, then forced out a reply. "I'll be out in just a second." My mind was racing. I needed to find something to defend myself. I checked the bathroom. Nothing sharp, no scissors or razors. Not even a can of spray I could use. I felt helpless. Time crawled by. I hadn't heard him move, which told me he was still close. Then my phone buzzed. It was Karen. Her voice was upbeat, but confused. "Hey, honey," she said. "I'm at cardio center. I thought I'd catch you and Jason here. Don't you have training today?" That made everything even more terrifying. Jason. My trainer's name was Michael. I froze. "Karen, did you say Jason?" I asked, barely able to speak. He started banging on the door, laughing. "Your friend's gonna hear you die." I'd never told Michael I got his number from Karen, and clearly I hadn't told Karen what name I had saved. She continued, sounding puzzled. "Yeah, Jason Richards. You're not playing a prank, are you?" Michael stepped away from the door. I could hear his footsteps pacing again, and somehow the distance made him feel even more threatening. If he moved too far, I'd lose track of him. with Michael Sanchez," I whispered. "From Fitness World. He said the gym was closed, so I'm at his house." She gasped. "What's the address?" 23 Walnut Avenue, I murmured, barely audible. He started banging again, louder this time. The door began to crack. I could hear splintering. He was shouting between fits of laughter. "Don't waste your breath, sweetheart. You'll be dead long before anyone gets here." I dropped my phone and leaned all of my weight against the door. The pounding grew more violent. He kept taunting me. I felt like my life was ending. I can't tell you what happened next. I don't remember how I got out. I don't remember seeing the police. I barely recall giving my statement. What I later learned was chilling. Karen had 2 trainer contacts in her phone. She'd had a few drinks at the office party and gave me Michael's number by mistake. She hadn't worked with him in months. Apparently, he had been fired from Cardio Center for inappropriate behavior with clients. When police arrived, they searched the basement. They found a young woman, a college student, who hadn't even been reported missing yet. Michael was arrested and charged with the first-degree kidnapping and attempted kidnapping. There were more charges tied to what he did to that girl, but not all details were released. I still don't understand how they called what happened to me an attempt. If Karen hadn't called, I might have never left that house. I might have ended up just like her. Michael was sentenced to 50 years with no chance of parole. I'll never see him again, and thankfully, he'll never be able to harm another woman. I once served as a law enforcement ranger assigned to a highly confidential wildlife preserve. What I'm about to share with you is the extent of what I can legally disclose regarding its unusual wildlife. My previous post was in the Everglades, a place I'd come to think of as home. That changed suddenly when the administration began downsizing the National Park Service. Practically overnight, our positions were terminated. They let go of nearly the entire team, handing out modest severance packages that barely covered a month's rent. I was caught completely off guard, frustrated, bitter, and heartbroken. But there was little time to dwell. My supervisor, Bruce, had already found another opportunity, and as luck would have it, he was allowed to bring one more law enforcement ranger along. About a week after the layoffs, Bruce gave me a call and asked if I wanted to meet up for coffee. "You've always had my back," Bruce told me as we sat down in a quiet diner, steam rising from our mugs. He was an imposing figure, tall, broad-shouldered, his face framed by a thick beard, 6'5", over 240 pounds. He looked more like a lumberjack than a federal employee, but I trusted him. He was a leader and, more importantly, a friend. In this profession, loyalty counts for more than anything. And you were the most dedicated ranger in that whole swamp. "Thanks," I said, unsure where the conversation was headed. Bruce could sense I was eager to know more. He leaned in and got to the point. "I've got contacts in the Bureau of Land Management. There's a new assignment open. It's a short-term contract, 6 months, but with potential to renew. Are you taking it?" "I already have," Bruce said. "The question is, are you willing to move to Northern California?" I had no real ties keeping me in Florida, but the sudden prospect of relocating across the country threw me off. I needed more information. "Where in California? Is it Golden Gate?" I imagined the scenic beauty of San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge glimmering in the sunset. "The location's classified," Bruce said flatly. "It's not a public park, No visitors allowed. That immediately raised red flags. Is it a military site? Bruce took a slow sip of coffee before responding. All I can say is the job is low stress. Honestly, it'll be the easiest post you've ever had. Plus, you'll earn 3 times what you made in the Glades. 3 times? I asked, almost in disbelief. Sounds too good to be true. Bruce slid a plain manila folder across the table, but before I could open it, his hand stopped mine. One thing first, I need to know you're in. I hesitated. This isn't some kind of drug op, right? I know about the marijuana farms up in NorCal. Bruce's expression turned serious. Meth, he said. I nearly choked on my drink. What? Are you kidding me? Bruce burst into a gravelly laugh. I'm messing with you. No drugs. The site's off limits due to environmental hazards. You'll just have to sign a non-disclosure agreement before I can give you any more details. Relieved but still uneasy, I opened the folder. Inside was a lengthy NDA, around 80 pages of dense legal language. The place I was headed to was called McNeely Pines Wildlife Preserve. I signed the paperwork and arrived a few days later. My journey took me from Sacramento deep into the California mountains, along winding roads with no visible signs of towns, gas stations, or even mile markers. Civilization seemed to vanish behind me as I entered an untouched wilderness that hadn't seen modern development in decades. By the time I reached the ranger station, the sun had dipped below the horizon. The building was an old wooden lodge, originally a hunting cabin, now converted into a 2-story command center, complete with multiple radio antennas. It seemed sturdy, but off. It wasn't until I unpacked, showered, and settled in for the night that I noticed a strange feature. Every window in the building was secured with reinforced metal bars. The following day, Bruce gave me a tour. It was just the 2 of us staffing the preserve. Cell reception was weak, but we had a fully equipped communications room for emergencies. The preserve covered over 10,000 acres of dense, pine-covered mountains. Towering trees formed a natural canopy that dimmed the forest floor even at midday. The landscape was untouched. No roads, no trash, no signs of human activity. Wildlife was abundant, yet the area was completely inaccessible to the public. Surrounding the preserve was a 15-foot-tall chain-link fence, topped with razor wire. Entry was restricted to federal personnel only. The isolation was more severe than I expected. What's this place hiding? Mutant grizzlies? I joked as Bruce and I cruised the perimeter in an ATV. Mostly deer, he said dryly. The fence isn't just to keep wildlife in, it's to keep everyone else out. That's when Bruce told me the full story. Years ago, a freight train carrying toxic chemicals derailed in the forest. The cargo included vinyl chloride, ethylhexyl acrylate, and other hazardous substances. The environmental damage was extensive. Since there were no towns nearby, the disaster didn't make national headlines. After initial cleanup efforts, the EPA declared the area quarantined for at least 2 decades. We were stationed to enforce that isolation. Our main responsibility was straightforward: control access. Only EPA officials were allowed inside. Bruce and I had the only gate code. Besides the main gate, my duties included managing a vast network of trail cameras, hundreds of them, positioned every 100 meters along the fence. Each camera faced both inward and outward. If anyone tried to breach the barrier, I was authorized to detain them immediately. The government paid for housing and bi-weekly grocery shipments, making this post incredibly lucrative for such minimal effort. But there were things that didn't quite add up. Why did we need so many cameras? Even the biggest national parks didn't have surveillance on this scale. When I examined the fence closely, I saw faint etchings, fine markings that looked almost like a script. You wouldn't notice them unless you were a few inches away. Bruce claimed the markings were a manufacturer's tag. The fencing had been custom made, he said, engineered to resist corrosion and harsh weather. They've sunk a fortune into this place, I muttered to myself. Each evening I'd upload the trail cam footage. Most clips were unremarkable. Leaves swaying, squirrels scurrying, deer grazing. Occasionally animals approached the fence. Despite the chemical spill, the wildlife seemed unaffected. Nothing appeared mutated or hostile. With all that poison in the soil, I'm amazed anything's still alive, I told Bruce during one of our nightly TV binges. Life's stubborn, he replied. Finds a way no matter what. Or maybe we're the problem, I said. Bruce shrugged. Still gotta put down anything that gets through the fence. I didn't like the idea, but I nodded. If any animal crossed into the clean zone, protocol was clear. Most days were repetitive. Monitor footage, maintain equipment, watch reruns. Occasionally, the gate would open for EPA teams. Every week, 2 black SUVs pulled up, and a team of technicians in white hazmat suits stepped out. They carried sealed equipment boxes and kept conversation minimal. What are they testing? I once asked. Routine soil checks, one of them replied. That was the most anyone ever said. The team would vanish into the forest, sometimes for hours, sometimes overnight. Bruce and I were never invited to accompany them. When I asked if they needed backup, Bruce dismissed the idea. They've got it. They're suits, he said. That's all they need. That response made me pause. We spent hours in the woods, daily, unprotected. Yet these teams never went in without full gear. Should we be wearing anything? The spill site's deep inside the preserve, Bruce assured me. We're far from any contamination. Assuming what they tell us is accurate, I said, half joking. Bruce laughed, but there was tension in his eyes. Ever wonder what they're really doing in there? Whatever it is, as long as we're getting paid, I'm not losing sleep, he said. I agreed outwardly, but inwardly, I was uneasy. Those hazmat teams always seemed off after returning, quiet, dazed, like they'd been through something traumatic. One day, I noticed something disturbing. A dark red liquid seeped from one of the equipment boxes as the team exited the forest. They quickly loaded it into an SUV and left without a word. That was blood, I told Bruce that night. He didn't laugh, didn't even smile. Don't overthink it, he said firmly, setting his glass down. His tone had shifted. The room felt colder. But this is our job. We're supposed to monitor this place. Don't you want to know what's happening? The park was never meant to reopen, he said quietly. That caught me off guard. What? Bruce didn't respond. He stared into the fireplace, then stood and walked away. Make sure the fire's out, he said as he climbed the stairs. I'd known him for years, but I had never seen him this withdrawn. Something about that box had rattled him. It wasn't the idea of animal testing. Bruce wasn't exactly an animal rights advocate. there was more to it. I couldn't shake the feeling, so I decided to dig deeper. In the communications room, I found archived trail cam footage dating back years. I wasn't supposed to access it, but curiosity got the better of me. The earliest clips didn't show any sign of a crash, but the night vision footage, that told another story. I saw figures, people, emerging from the forest, bloodied, confused. At first there were only a few, then more, then dozens. "What are you doing?" a voice said behind me. I turned around. Bruce stood in the doorway, eyes fixed on the screen. "I was just reviewing last night's footage," I said, minimizing the window. He didn't move, and in that moment, I realized something. He already knew. "It's 6:30, time for evening rounds," Bruce said, his voice low but firm. "Right. Yeah," I replied quickly, shutting down everything I was doing and logging off the terminal. As I exited the control room, I noticed Bruce watching me, his gaze a little too focused, like he suspected something. Maybe he knew I'd accessed those restricted files. I thought about confessing, but it didn't seem like the right time. Better to wait until later that night, after he'd had his usual few glasses of whiskey. Maybe then he'd be more talkative, more open. I made my way to the garage to grab the ATV for patrol. That's when I noticed the massive bolt cutters hanging on a shelf near the tool bench. I'd seen them before, but never really paid them much attention. Bruce had once told me they were strictly for EPA-related emergencies, like if the main gate jammed and we had to clear a path for hazardous materials crews. In the year I'd worked there, I'd never taken them out. Why would I? I wasn't out here saving radioactive elk or mutant coyotes. But something was different that evening. I felt compelled, no, driven, to grab those cutters before heading out. They were heavy, unusually so, and bore the same strange markings I'd noticed etched into the chain-link fence surrounding the forest. Symbols I'd dismissed before, but now seemed to mean something. With the tools loaded in the back, I started up the ATV and set out on my route, which followed a service road running along the 14-mile perimeter of McNeely Pines. I switched on the headlights just as dusk settled over the forest. Everything was bathed in a strange, dusky hue. Not quite day, not fully night. It was a time of transition, when the forest seemed to hold its breath. I rolled along at a slow pace, maybe 10 miles per hour, carefully scanning the woods as I went. The atmosphere was thick and unnatural. Even the usual forest sounds were muted, like I was moving through water. It was eerie, an oppressive silence, heavy and expectant. I'd never experienced anything like it since arriving at McNeely Pines. And then I heard it, a voice, faint and ragged, calling from the shadows. "Help!" I hit the brakes and brought the ATV to a halt, my spotlight cutting across the road. "Hello?" I called out. "Who's there?" "Help, please." The voice came again, closer now. I panned the light toward the trees, and that's when I saw him. A man stood just inside the fence line, thin as a rail, his body barely covered in tattered clothing. He looked disoriented, hollow-eyed, his movements slow and uncertain as he stumbled toward the fence. His skin was nearly translucent, a sickly, pale color that caught the light. "My God," I muttered. I climbed out of the ATV, hand instinctively reaching for my taser. The guy looked like someone deep in a meth binge, paranoid, unstable, maybe dangerous. I'd encountered a few like him back in my days, working park security in the Everglades. "How the hell did you get in there?" I asked. "This area is off limits. They're keeping us," he said, barely coherent. "We can't get out. They're horrible. Oh God, they're horrible." "Who's keeping you?" I asked, stepping closer but still keeping my distance. "The demons," he replied. Drool slipped from his mouth. "They're everywhere. So many." "Stay there," I ordered, reaching for the radio on my shoulder. "Bruce, come in. I've got a situation at mile marker 12. There's a guy inside the fence. Says he's being held. Doesn't look right. Might be on something." "Don't approach him," Bruce responded almost instantly. "Just hold your position. Don't talk to him. Don't make eye contact. I'm on my way." "Copy that," I replied, though it was hard to keep the man from talking. "Who's that? Who are you speaking to? Don't let him come," the man said, his voice growing frantic. He was now almost at the fence, barely a foot from the chain link. "Sir, relax. Help is coming." "What's your name?" I asked. "We don't have names," he whispered. "Only numbers." "Okay, stay calm. Someone's on the way." "No," he said, shaking his head violently. "He won't help us. He'll kill us." I didn't bother arguing. The guy was delusional, probably just a backpacker who got lost, wandered off trail, and ended up on the wrong side of the perimeter. But I couldn't ignore the strange tone in his voice, or the fear in his eyes. "We're not allowed to leave," he added. "If we do, the demons punish us. The ones in white coats." I checked my phone. It was just after 8:15 p.m. Bruce should have been here by now. Something didn't feel right. The man looked up at me again, a flicker of hope in his eyes. You have a kind face. I know you'll help us. What's your name?" "Us," I echoed, glancing up, only to freeze. Two others had appeared beside him, a young woman in her 20s and a child, no older than 6. The girl clutched the woman's leg, her eyes wide with tears. "Please," the child said, her voice breaking. "Help us." All 3 of them were dressed the same. Beige shirts, beige pants, and cheap flip-flops. The kind you'd get at a prison or hospital, or something worse. This isn't just a junkie, I realized aloud. This is something much bigger. I radioed Bruce again. "Bruce, there's more. A woman and a little girl. They say they're a family." "Don't talk to them," Bruce snapped. "Do not engage. I'm almost there." He sounded winded, his voice crackling over the line. I heard a low hum, maybe the auxiliary ATV, but then the signal cut out entirely. "Bruce, you still there?" "Nothing. Just static. They're lying to you," the woman said softly, pulling the man away. "He's not coming to help." "No. He has compassion. I can see it," the man said. His gaze didn't leave me. It was unsettling, how focused he was. I checked my phone again. Time was slipping away. Then the child collapsed. Her small frame hit the forest floor, racked with convulsions. Her eyes rolled back. Foam bubbled at her mouth. "She's going into shock," the woman cried. She jammed a stick between the girl's teeth to keep her from biting her tongue. "She's dying." The man turned to me, desperation in his voice. "Please, do you have a first aid kit?" I did, and I knew I couldn't wait for Bruce. The girl didn't have time. Instinct took over. I raced to the back of the ATV, grabbed the kit and the bolt cutters. Seconds later, I was kneeling at the fence, Snip, snip, snip. Thank you, thank you. Snip. The last link broke, and the cut section fell forward. An immense gust of air burst from the opening, knocking me onto my back. My vision spun. My body felt like static, disoriented and unreal. But I caught fleeting images. Through the haze, the family rushing through the fence. The man turned to me. "We'll never forget this," he said. And then they vanished into the trees. More figures followed, pale, twisted silhouettes darting through the forest. Then everything went black. I came too late the next morning, still lying in the dirt, my mouth dry, my head pounding. The fence was torn wide open. Something large had passed through, bending the metal like paper. The ATV was still there, but drained, battery dead, fuel tank empty. I tried the radio. "Bruce, come in." Nothing. I had to walk the 6 miles back to the ranger station, calling every few minutes with no reply. Deep down, I knew I'd made a huge mistake. I had let something out, something dangerous, and now I'd have to face the consequences. When I reached the station, I saw the damage immediately. The front door was ajar, windows broken, the steel bars bent outward like they'd been peeled by a monster. Inside, it was carnage, furniture shattered, glass everywhere, blood, so much blood, and in the middle of it all, Bruce, or what was left of him. His body was shredded, chest cavity torn open, organs missing, his face frozen in a scream. I stumbled back in horror. Then I saw what he was clutching. A report. Bloodied. Government issued. I pried it from his cold fingers using a pair of pliers. It confirmed everything. There was no train crash. That was a cover story. The EPA agents I'd been assisting weekly. Military scientists. They operated a classified facility buried deep in McNeely Pines. No name, just the facility. Photos showed men, women, and children, heads shaved, starving, imprisoned. The experiments were barbaric. Neurotoxins, psychological degradation, organ failure tracking. I threw the report across the room, but saw the shredder. A pile of destroyed documents lay beneath. Bruce had tried to erase everything, except the one file he died holding. I took it. I left McNeely Pines forever. I drove until I reached a motel near Yosemite. There, I uploaded the entire report to my cloud account. If anyone came to silence me, the truth would still survive. The last pages of the document were the worst. The military had moved beyond chemicals. They were testing ancient artifacts, arcane weapons. One Sumerian tablet matched the symbols I saw on the fence and cutters. The subject, a man in his 40s, his blood used in a ritual. From the basin rose a creature, tall, thin, impossibly strong. It was him, the man who begged me to set him free. I'm still in this motel room. I don't know what happens next. I might release everything. I know the government will come for me. I know what I unleashed may hurt others, but I can't forget their faces, especially the child's. As I left McNeely Pines, one of them stepped from the trees, 10 feet tall, shark-like skin, dagger teeth, and a familiar bracelet of buttons on its wrist. It smiled and waved, the girl in the blue dress. A real supernatural experience. My grandmother often said that every girl experiences something supernatural before turning 15. For me, that moment came when I was 13. Before I dive into the story, I want to clarify a few things. First, I apologize in advance for any grammatical errors. English isn't my first language. Second, I don't follow any particular religion, and as someone currently working as a researcher in a neuroscience lab, I'm grounded in science. I don't believe in ghosts or the supernatural. That said, what I'm about to share truly happened, and to this day, I stand by every detail of it. Let me start from the beginning. Back in middle school, my parents enrolled me in a Christian girls' boarding high school, not because we were religious, but because they believed the structure and discipline would be good for someone like me, who had a bit of a rebellious streak. The school was located in a remote, mountainous area and had tall walls enclosing the entire campus. Outsiders weren't allowed in, and the rules were strict. Every Thursday, just as the sun began to set, all students and staff would gather in a large hall for prayer and religious talks. One evening, I didn't feel like staying. I wasn't feeling well, and I told my teacher I needed to use the restroom so I could leave early. She allowed it. As I stepped out, the whole school was unusually quiet, almost peaceful. I wandered around the empty campus, enjoying the silence. Then, I saw something strange. A young girl wearing a long blue dress, dancing alone on the grass. She had very long black hair that reached her hips and was quite short, clearly younger than the rest of the students. Her face wasn't visible from where I stood. It immediately struck me as odd. Our school had strict rules and rarely allowed outsiders, especially given how isolated and secure the campus was. I figured she might be a teacher's daughter who had somehow wandered off, wanting to inform her that students weren't allowed on the grass. I approached her, but before I could say a word, she suddenly sprinted across the field and bolted up the stairs attached to the side of a building. She moved faster than anyone I had ever seen. By the time I even reacted, she was already halfway up the building. For some unknown reason, I felt compelled to chase her. I began running as fast as I could. By the time I reached the second floor, she was already at the top. When I finally got there, she had vanished. I checked every classroom on that floor. Some were empty, others locked. All the doors were closed. There was only one staircase in the building, so how could she have disappeared without a trace? A man stood just inside the fence line, thin as a rail, his body barely covered in tattered clothing. He looked disoriented, hollow-eyed, his movements slow and uncertain as he stumbled toward the fence. His skin was nearly translucent, a sickly, pale color that caught the light. "My God," I muttered. I climbed out of the ATV, hand instinctively reaching for my taser. The guy looked like someone deep in a meth binge, paranoid, unstable, maybe dangerous. I'd encountered a few like him back in my days, working park security in the Everglades. "How the hell did you get in there?" I asked. "This area is off limits. They're keeping us," he said, barely coherent. "We can't get out. They're horrible. Oh God, they're horrible." "Who's keeping you?" I asked, stepping closer but still keeping my distance. "The demons," he replied. Drool slipped from his mouth. "They're everywhere. So many." "Stay there," I ordered, reaching for the radio on my shoulder. "Bruce, come in. I've got a situation at mile marker 12. There's a guy inside the fence. Says he's being held. Doesn't look right. Might be on something." "Don't approach him," Bruce responded almost instantly. Just hold your position. Don't talk to him. Don't make eye contact. I'm on my way. Copy that, I replied, though it was hard to keep the man from talking. Who's that? Who are you speaking to? Don't let him come, the man said, his voice growing frantic. He was now almost at the fence, barely a foot from the chain link. Sir, relax. Help is coming. What's your name? I asked. We don't have names, he whispered. Only numbers. Okay, stay calm. Someone's on the way. No, he said, shaking his head violently. He won't help us. He'll kill us. I didn't bother arguing. The guy was delusional, probably just a backpacker who got lost, wandered off trail, and ended up on the wrong side of the perimeter. But I couldn't ignore the strange tone in his voice, or the fear in his eyes. We're not allowed to leave, he added. If we do, the demons punish us. The ones in white coats. I checked my phone. It was just after 8:15 p.m. Bruce should have been here by now. Something didn't feel right. The man looked up at me again, a flicker of hope in his eyes. You have a kind face. I know you'll help us. What's your name? Us, I echoed, glancing up, only to freeze. Two others had appeared beside him, a young woman in her 20s and a child, no older than 6. The girl clutched the woman's leg, her eyes wide with tears. Please, the child said, her voice breaking, help us. All 3 of them were dressed the same. Beige shirts, beige pants, and cheap flip-flops. The kind you'd get at a prison or hospital, or something worse. This isn't just a junkie, I realized aloud. This is something much bigger. I radioed Bruce again. Bruce, there's more. A woman and a little girl. They say they're a family. Don't talk to them, Bruce snapped. Do not engage. I'm almost there. He sounded winded, his voice crackling over the line. I heard a low hum, maybe the auxiliary ATV, but then the signal cut out entirely. Bruce, you still there? Nothing. Just static. They're lying to you, the woman said softly, pulling the man away. He's not coming to help. No. He has compassion. I can see it, the man said. His gaze didn't leave me. It was unsettling, how focused he was. I checked my phone again. Time was slipping away. Then the child collapsed. Her small frame hit the forest floor, racked with convulsions. Her eyes rolled back. Foam bubbled at her mouth. She's going into shock, the woman cried. She jammed a stick between the girl's teeth to keep her from biting her tongue. She's dying. The man turned to me, desperation in his voice. Please, do you have a first aid kit? I did, and I knew I couldn't wait for Bruce. The girl didn't have time. Instinct took over. I raced to the back of the ATV, grabbed the kit and the bolt cutters. Seconds later, I was kneeling at the fence. Snip, snip, snip. Thank you, thank you. Snip. The last link broke, and the cut section fell forward. An immense gust of air burst from the opening, knocking me onto my back. My vision spun. My body felt like static, disoriented and unreal. But I caught fleeting images. Through the haze, the family rushing through the fence. The man turned to me. We'll never forget this, he said. And then they vanished into the trees. More figures followed, pale, twisted silhouettes darting through the forest. Then everything went black. I came too late the next morning, still lying in the dirt, my mouth dry, my head pounding. The fence was torn wide open. Something large had passed through, bending the metal like paper. The ATV was still there, but drained, battery dead, fuel tank empty. I tried the radio. "Bruce, come in." Nothing. I had to walk the 6 miles back to the ranger station, calling every few minutes with no reply. Deep down, I knew I'd made a huge mistake. I had let something out, something dangerous, and now I'd have to face the consequences. When I reached the station, I saw the damage immediately. The front door was ajar, windows broken, the steel bars bent outward like they'd been peeled by a monster. Inside, it was carnage, furniture shattered, glass everywhere, blood, so much blood, and in the middle of it all, Bruce, or what was left of him. His body was shredded, chest cavity torn open, organs missing, his face frozen in a scream. I stumbled back in horror. Then I saw what he was clutching. A report. Bloodied. Government issued. I pried it from his cold fingers using a pair of pliers. It confirmed everything. There was no train crash. That was a cover story. The EPA agents I'd been assisting weekly. Military scientists. They operated a classified facility buried deep in McNeely Pines. No name, just the facility. Photos showed men, women, and children, heads shaved, starving, imprisoned. The experiments were barbaric. Neurotoxins, psychological degradation, organ failure tracking. I threw the report across the room, but saw the shredder. A pile of destroyed documents lay beneath. Bruce had tried to erase everything, except the one file he died holding. I took it. I left McNeely Pines forever. I drove until I reached a motel near Yosemite. There, I uploaded the entire report to my cloud account. If anyone came to silence me, the truth would still survive. The last pages of the document were the worst. The military had moved beyond chemicals. They were testing ancient artifacts, arcane weapons. One Sumerian tablet matched the symbols I saw on the fence and gutters. The subject, a man in his 40s, his blood used in a ritual. From the basin rose a creature, tall, thin, impossibly strong. It was him, the man who begged me to set him free. I'm still in this motel room. I don't know what happens next. I might release everything. I know the government will come for me. I know what I unleashed may hurt others, but I can't forget their faces, especially the child's. As I left McNeely Pines, one of them stepped from the trees, 10 feet tall, shark-like skin, dagger teeth, and a familiar bracelet of buttons on its wrist. It smiled and waved, the girl in the blue dress. A real supernatural experience. My grandmother often said that every girl experiences something supernatural before turning 15. For me, that moment came when I was 13. Before I dive into the story, I want to clarify a few things. First, I apologize in advance for any grammatical errors. English isn't my first language. Second, I don't follow any particular religion, and as someone currently working as a researcher in a neuroscience lab, I'm grounded in science. I don't believe in ghosts or the supernatural. That said, what I'm about to share truly happened, and to this day, I stand by every detail of it. Let me start from the beginning. Back in middle school, my parents enrolled me in a Christian girls' boarding high school, not because we were religious, but because they believed the structure and discipline would be good for someone like me, who had a bit of a rebellious streak. The school was located in a remote, mountainous area and had tall walls enclosing the entire campus. Outsiders weren't allowed in, and the rules were strict. Every Thursday, just as the sun began to set, all students and staff would gather in a large hall for prayer and religious talks. One evening, I didn't feel like staying. I wasn't feeling well, and I told my teacher I needed to use the restroom so I could leave early. She allowed it. As I stepped out, the whole school was unusually quiet, almost peaceful. I wandered around the empty campus, enjoying the silence. Then, I saw something strange. A young girl wearing a long blue dress, dancing alone on the grass. She had very long black hair that reached her hips and was quite short, clearly younger than the rest of the students. Her face wasn't visible from where I stood. It immediately struck me as odd. Our school had strict rules and rarely allowed outsiders, especially given how isolated and secure the campus was. I figured she might be a teacher's daughter who had somehow wandered off, wanting to inform her that students weren't allowed on the grass. I approached her, but before I could say a word, she suddenly sprinted across the field and bolted up the stairs attached to the side of a building. She moved faster than anyone I had ever seen. By the time I even reacted, she was already halfway up the building. For some unknown reason, I felt compelled to chase her. I began running as fast as I could. By the time I reached the second floor, she was already at the top. When I finally got there, she had vanished. I checked every classroom on that floor. Some were empty, others locked. All the doors were closed. There was only one staircase in the building, so how could she have disappeared without a trace? I stood outside my classroom, completely baffled. Just then, my classmates returned from the prayer hall and saw me standing there. When I told them what had happened, they were horrified. They scolded me, yelling, "Why did you follow her? You should never have done that. Are you crazy?" Later that evening, during the mandatory study period from 7 to 9 p.m., which, by the way, was as strict as you'd imagine in a traditional Asian boarding school, I was in my usual seat at the back of the classroom near the door. Normally, I'd spend that time sketching or reading novels, but that night, something felt off. I couldn't concentrate. I had the strong feeling that the girl next to me was staring at me. We weren't allowed to speak during study time, so I tried to ignore her. But her gaze felt so intense that I finally turned to see what was going on. I was planning to gesture for her to stop, but I quickly realized she wasn't looking at me at all. She was staring at the door behind me. Her expression shifted drastically. Her face lost all color. Her eyebrows tightened into a sharp, meat shape, and her eyes filled with tears. Her mouth was wide open, and she looked like she was gasping for breath. Her teeth were visibly shaking. Then she started screaming. She covered her ears with her hands, crying loudly and pointing behind me. I froze. I didn't dare turn around. Whatever she was seeing, I didn't want to see it too. One girl in the class, who claimed she could sense supernatural beings, looked toward the door and calmly said, "There's someone standing there." A teacher soon arrived, drawn by the noise. She asked 2 students to take the screaming girl to the teacher's office to contact her parents. Then she left to get more help. The room fell into a stunned silence. We were all still trying to understand what just happened. That's when the girl with the supernatural sensitivity spoke again. "It's still there. It hasn't gone away." Panic spread like wildfire. The entire class broke down. Some girls cried, others screamed. Many began to pray quietly, hoping for protection. Minutes passed, and then the girl said, "It's gone now." Eventually, 2 more teachers arrived with the school priest. They led us in prayer and tried to calm us down. One teacher gave me a small cross necklace because I was trembling so badly. Before we left, they told us not to speak of the incident to anyone outside our class. They didn't want panic to spread throughout the school. Even now, I thank myself for not turning around that night. I didn't want to see whatever was behind me. Of course, once we were back in our dormitory, we told the other classes everything. That night, I was too scared to sleep. I asked my roommate to stay awake until I fell asleep, and she agreed. I wrapped myself tightly in my blanket, too frightened to peek out. At some point, I heard something near my bed. I cautiously looked out and saw a figure staring at me. Terrified, I screamed, "Ghost!" and threw my pillow. Turns out it was my roommate. She was just checking on me before going to sleep. To this day, I still apologize to her every year on her birthday for that incident. A few days later, something else happened. I was at wind orchestra practice, and during a break, I told the girl who played the flute about what happened in class that night. Importantly, I didn't mention the girl in the blue dress. I still wanted to believe there was a rational explanation. But as soon as I finished the story, she said something unexpected. She also claimed to have the ability to sense supernatural entities. Then she told me that for some time now, she had seen something not human standing near the school gate. I asked her what it looked like. "Is it like a shadow or something monstrous?" She replied, "No, it's just a little girl in a blue dress with long hair." That was the only supernatural experience I've ever had. It wasn't dramatically terrifying, but it stayed with me all these years. I've heard other girls from that school had similar experiences, and maybe I'll share their stories in the future. My grandmother always believed that every girl would encounter something otherworldly before the age of 15. In many Asian cultures, there's a belief that women have a stronger yin energy, making them more sensitive to the supernatural. As someone who doesn't follow a religion and values scientific explanation, I still try to make sense of what happened. But even today, I haven't found a logical answer. If anyone out there has a theory or explanation, I'd love to hear it.